Vicky.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How's everyone? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. I can already see people from probably 3 continents at least here already, if not 4. All right. So for those of you who are just joining, if you are not ready to interact with the group, please do mute your phone so that we can have a better recording for people who may not be able to join us. And with that, I will kick it off. Welcome everyone. My name is Becky Flint. I am the founder and CEO of dragonboat, and here with me, I'm very excited to introduce you 2 of our guests, Susan and Mauro. And what they will share with us today is how they have gone on their journey from starting in various technical roles and Scrum Masters today to become a portfolio program manager and a leader in the space that truly make impact to business. So it will be a very open-ended conversation, and they will do introduction about themselves a little bit. Then, and those of you who have additional questions, feel free to send over the chat. So we'll pass it over to our to Susan and Mauro. And before I go that, I'll also just do a quick intro about the dragonboat. We are a responsive portfolio platform. Obviously, that's why we're interested in portfolio program management. And we're headquartered in Silicon Valley. We have offices in Europe and also US. We are venture funded. So we are the thought leader in the responsive PPM space, along with many of you, part of the journey. And we have customers in more than 20 countries, including both Fortune 500 startups and Global 1000. So with that said, I'm going to kick off the conversation at the end. We are also want to, as I mentioned earlier, to provide a little bit of intro and for you to get exposed to the responsive PPM training and certification program. So I am going to stop sharing and would turn this over to Susan, who is with us today, and then Mauro, if you may do a little bit intro of yourself, please. Thank you.
So welcome everybody. Susan Rainsbarger. I have been with RUAN Transportation now for about 1.5 years. Prior to that, I worked for a financial company here in Des Moines, Iowa. I started my actual agile career over with the other company. So I've been a Scrum Master for about 6 going on 7 years. And from there, I worked with 2 teams. I worked with 2 teams before, one offshore and one, on-prem. But I still work at RUAN with 2 teams, one that does more of a Kanban style versus sprint. But shortly after joining with RUAN, they started asking me to take on more of a portfolio level for our IT department. Which has been an awesome journey. It started out more as an admin piece, but then I started asking quite a few questions, and it has kind of expanded upon that. So, Mauro, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I'm my name is Mauro Martins. I'm from Portugal, and I started my career as delivery manager. So I was managing. So I was engineer by heart. I was basically a programmer, and I then started taking a delivery manager role. And back in the day, the delivery manager will also take the role of the Scrum Master. Okay, and I did it for a betting company with Betfair. So they are very big in the UK. And then I moved into fast forward a couple of years, I moved into Fizai, which was the last company I worked for. And that's where I got from being a delivery manager / Scrum Master to start moving into what we called back in the day technical program manager, which was what was weird in terms of the way that you were naming the role, but and we saw that, and then we moved into more form program manager / portfolio management. So so my experience is from handling the two Scrum teams inside, all local. So having all the members of the teams with me, to managing / doing Scrum Master work in with different countries. And I guess that the biggest number of teams probably was like 5. I guess I was not Scrum Master at that time, just because I couldn't handle. So we did this thing about moving the Scrum Master role inside the team and not having someone from the outside working with the team. Right now, I'm working for the last 11 months in a company called Basecone. They are basically one of the leads on tax and accounting here in Europe, mainly the Netherlands. And I was hired just to not just, but to go and do the portfolio management job, which instead of being the part of the Scrum Master, where you do the everyday you work at every day, right? The day-to-day work, and you help the teams on the day-to-day. Now it's moving more into the monthly, quarterly, annually. So it's getting bigger and bigger as time goes by, and you grow into more and more departments. And so yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Awesome. So great to hear your background and your evolution from a Scrum Master to program and then to portfolio manager. I definitely heard similar themes from weekly, 2-week sprints to bigger. So with that said, I want to just maybe turn that question to you, Susan, first. On when you become a portfolio manager versus when you were Scrum manager, what are your different focuses? What do you do differently?
Well, first, I still do the Scrum Master. So I haven't officially moved into the portfolio. I'm taking it on because of the visibility that the department and everything needs. So when I look at the differences between those two, like Mario said, from a Scrum Master aspect, I'm looking at the day-to-day, and I'm looking at the 2-week sprint. Or from a Kanban aspect, I'm looking at first in, first out, or priorities, and it's more day-to-day. What are the roadblocks there? What can we do differently to make ourselves more efficient? Are we going to meet that 2-week timeline or a sprint? When I start looking at the portfolio side, it takes a look at a larger capacity, because I'm looking at, we have 5 standing Scrum teams. We have other teams that are not even in JIRA. So I'm looking across the whole IT. Can you guys still hear me?
You somehow was muted. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. So if I'm repeating myself, then just let me know. But at the portfolio level, I'm now looking at the department. So more resource capacity. We had always had a gut feel, right? It was like, oh, we feel busy. We feel like we're strapped for time, and things started, the strategic initiatives started stacking on top of each other, and you could feel, that the strain was happening. So it's actually looking at that piece and taking a look at what our leadership says is our buckets of work. And how we should be prioritizing those buckets, because we have 5, but some teams' buckets and priorities are in a different order. Right. So it's actually taking a look at those. Talking about resource capacity is the main thing that we were never able to really do before. So that's one thing. And then actually talking about those interdependencies between the teams, and what are the risks of these strategic initiatives, and how do we need to get those aligned. And just because we have a business partner that says we'd like to have this strategic work done, now I take a look and say, well, that's nice, but something's got to give. Because if this is truly locked in because of a vendor or anything like that, then we have to have that honest conversation about what's going to move, what's going to change. So
Right.
Yeah, that's how it changed for me, and to try to manage the two different hats.
It's definitely, you hit on so many important elements about the strategic, you kind of call it bucket or theme. You talk about the trade-offs, you talk about the allocations. It's awesome. So maybe turning it over to you, Mauro. What's your experience that different as a portfolio manager, and how that your focus on?
Yeah, it's very similar to what Susan said. So what I noticed was that when you work as a Scrum Master, either you are inside the team and get this as a sub role, or you work with as a Scrum Master of maybe 2 teams. You work really on the day-to-day, and your sphere of influence is small. So what you can do, it's always tied to these day-to-day moments or 2 weeks moments, and you only, then your work ties or glues a team of 6, and maybe if you have 2, probably 12. And you look at things like your team, the way that your team can improve. You try to surface or try to find artifacts and data for your team to discuss potential improvements, like you do in the retrospectives. Like you start analyzing things like velocity, number of work items that start the committed versus delivered. You analyze the different type of work that your team is doing, and you start challenging them. And also with the same with and then you are very valuable to the product owner also, because if you do this thing right, you can be basically the help that the product owner needs to understand where are we where and how are we moving with this specific team. And maybe one of the things that I guess I liked a lot when doing the Scrum Master work was to get with it's very valuable that you work with the other Scrum Masters inside the company and take the advantage of the challenges that you are facing, and expose that to this group, because there is always someone who had the same thing, that has gone through the same problem, and you work together to try to find a solution. I still remember the first job when I was a Scrum Master. For some reason, I'm not even sure if I read somewhere, but the thing about sticky notes on the retrospective. So everyone quiet during 5 or 10 minutes, just let us write something in the sticky notes. And I was blown away by the fact that instead of 3 top things that we want to improve, you start having like 20 and 25. It was like crazy. I said, I was thinking, oh, well, this is the holy grail. I'm doing so. It's amazing. And then the good thing is that as we start talking with the Scrum Masters, they start doing the same, and automatically you push the teams forward. You move them into different levels of maturity, for instance, and it was really great. And I also, I still enjoy very much like the day-to-day and see the teams getting better every day and helping them. In terms of in terms of how does this work actually translated to the program management, portfolio management, is that you don't get the everyday things, like you don't go happy, don't go home happy with whatever happened, because whatever you do, you see the difference only like in 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. That is what is really the shift here. And you always operate at a very big scale and a very big the timeline, and the impact is not that straightforward. So yeah, you focus on the long run. Another thing, and I guess it's really valuable, is that you are not part of any team. So, and you're not part of any department. So you're that person in the middle that challenge every single person in the room and asks always the same question: are we doing the correct thing? Or are we doing the correct thing with the time that we have? Are we expanding our resources in the correct way? And it's not easy, because a lot of things have to happen for you to be able to, in the company, for you to be able to ask this question. It's like, do you have the annual objectives or quarterly objectives in place? Because without them, you cannot go into a meeting and challenge anyone, because the agreement is not there on the objectives or where we want to move. So even before we get there, and that's where the beauty of this world is, you can touch in so many things. And but the hard part is you only see in like 3 months, 6 months, which is the hard part. It is really, really great. I'm really enjoying to work as a portfolio manager.
Right. So awesome. So you, I think you both touched upon a little bit on you were accidentally got into the portfolio management when you started with the Scrum Master. And so one of the things you also mentioned that you see the needs in that because there's, you know, there's more things you wanted to do, right? There's more things the company wanted to do, the more things your stakeholder wanted to do. And obviously there's the limit, it's the laws of physics. So how do you handle that in your role? And that's obviously a big part of the portfolio manager's function is to, how do you take all these inputs from a different area and knowing here's either your team or a couple of team you work with, how do you balance those two elements?
I don't know, Mari, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go, yeah, you can go first. It's okay.
For us, we actually have pulled together a new team, so to speak, where we're trying to do a new process of having all of the requests funneled in one way. So they come in, because right now it's like scattered. You've got emails, you've got people pinging the CIO, you know, it's just multiple ways to come in. So we are actually trying to funnel the process into one way. And then we have a couple architects that will take a look at the work and actually size it, get more information, really truly dive into what the ask is. And so upon that, then we have two really different routes for approval. Actually three. So if it's a small and medium work effort, then those are going to go straight to the team and the product owner. And the product owner is going to do their normal prioritization, understand. If we have a large or extra large work effort, which turns into our strategic initiatives, then it's either going to be approved by our IT leadership or it's going to be approved by the steering committee, our IT steering committee. And then based on their approval or denial, if it's approved, then it actually will come to us. And that's when we start putting it in the tool. We start looking at resources. We start looking at timings. We start looking at dependencies on other teams. And then we can really start calling out what does that look like in the roadmap and everything, and how we want to adjust. Because if we've got competing priorities, then we need to have that conversation as far as what takes priority and that type of thing.
Very, very cool. Yeah, it is definitely, I think especially in the IT organization, there are so many moving pieces that, especially for the larger ones, definitely go through a pretty rigorous process of the approvals and the governance. And I also heard you mention that our smaller features and requests will be prioritized by product. It's really interesting that the big rock and the pebble kind of process is being applied here. So how about you? How's your experience, Mauro, to handle lots of demands and the team limitation?
Yeah, I always say that execution and preparation is the key here. I remember when reading the Rockefeller 2.0 habits, like the book on planning, how when how some companies pull it off or others don't. And the thing about, you need to almost like set up this execution and preparation in a way that's almost like rhythmic. So there is a cadence, there is a rhythm, like these things will go pass through these certain places. And if you do it right, and I totally agree on the funnel strategy, because we have done the same, you need to figure it out, the rhythm if these things happen. So I will do the same strategy with the funnel. So I'll just start with the funnel. So what I've done was, or what we have done is each department has their own roadmap, because everyone wants something, right? The thing about that is common to these companies is that everyone wants that single developer time, and they will try to fight for it, right? So you need to create like this type of funnels, like let's say the customer success roadmap, even the product itself is a roadmap in itself that sometimes may not be the roadmap, the product roadmap in the end, right? Because you're fighting priorities. So you have let's see, the product roadmap, you have this customer success roadmap, the sales, the marketing, etc. And what I've done is that there are multiple funnels happening here. So these groups will have to, between themselves, or these departments will have to figure it out, and prioritize their needs. So you don't end up with when product gets like a 300, because that happened to me before, like 300 requests or asks or needs, right? And that doesn't scale, because the head of product or the product owner will say, I will not spend time doing anything else, rather than going through Jira tickets, let's say, if we are using Jira. So making sure that each department has their own their own roadmap. They set up their the specifications and the priorities, etc., and find a way to those funnel into the same place that then funnels into the teams. I guess that's the key. That's where the rhythm enters. So the weekly, the bi-weekly, the monthly, the quarterly, the annually. There is a very good very good sketch in that Rockefeller book. It shows you perfectly how does that look like a jazz band. And I still remember I guess it was the Measure What Matters book from John Doerr, when he says, ideas are easy, execution is everything. Yeah. Because you can have an idea, but like someone can have the best idea ever. If it doesn't go through the process, let's say, properly, it will never get done, or it will end up not being done. And probably it's the next big thing. And so yeah, we call it product development life cycle.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. The product development life cycle, where we basically have these funnels and these departments funneling the needs. And one thing that I noticed is that if you set up these, sometimes people don't want to have this because it's easier to go to the CTO and ask for something, right? What I noticed that if you rephrased it in the way that, yes, you're going to do this way, but you automatically get feedback, or you'll get feedback on what we are going to do very, very fast, and you don't have to wait like 1 week, 2 weeks, you get the buy-in, because people will know what is happening, because there is this funnel part, but on the other hand, there is people deciding what to do with what you just requested. So you get the feedback loop, and that's how you, not how you sell, but you get the buy-in of these things in both sides.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I think there are two things you mentioned in your chat. I noticed that as well. One is when you talk about roadmap, everyone means different thing. And yes, I think yesterday I was talking to someone about, even if this company has only one product manager and only one Scrum team, there are multiple roadmaps. People like, how could that be? I said, look, as a product manager, you have a product roadmap. That's where you want a product be, right? And as the Scrum team has their own roadmap, because that's what they're supposed to work on. And that is not the same as what product wants. The reason is because the Scrum team has production issues. They have a tech roadmap. So then all of a sudden you're dealing with a portfolio, even if you just have one Scrum team, because you have those competing needs, right? So the skill is so valuable to carry from place to place. Now, with that said, I know you do what you're doing is really one of the key things is to help prioritize and evaluate it and decide on what your team work before you go to your team. So your team is having a clear priority, not just churn all over. It's super valuable. Now I want to ask you, that's the helping the team side. I want to flip around this a little bit, is that how does it help your company, your organization? Maybe I'll go with Mauro first and then go past to Susan.
Okay, so the good thing about that, and I can use dragonboat as an example and how we use it at Basecone. So again, the way that we set up this was the departments themselves operate under Jira. Okay, so they have their own project. They can discuss in whatever matter or in whatever way they want, etc., etc. And they can have their own roadmap and set up prioritization, etc. But then we have a specific option, which is inside Jira. You say the quarter, and you move that you move the ticket from one status to the other, and automatically shows up in dragonboat. Okay, what that helps is that you create this difference between the noise and discussions, and then the things that you actually want to get done, or you want to ask for resources from the technical the Scrum teams. Okay, and we do that, and then we are sure that we are discussing the things that really are important for the business or for the product, and you do that and we do that in dragonboat. So it's like the curated view of the things that we really want to do. As soon as it goes through the normal process of yes, we are going to do it, these are the resources, these are the teams, etc., etc. The good thing, and that's how it helps my team and all the companies, that we use the dashboard, so the progress dashboard in Dragonboat, and send this over to everyone. So, and we do it in a way that you can see which team is doing what, and attached to which objective of the company or the strategic pillar for the year. And what really this enables you, it's there are multiple things happening here. So there is the team view, you have the objectives view, you have what is being done, and you send this to everyone. This helps a lot, because one of the things that's really important in our role is to, even if you're not doing very well in terms of how do you communicate, at least you generate discussion, you generate the multiple views or multiple people talking with each other, and after that you generate the consensus or the alignment. And this is where it actually is important, the part of the visibility. And I can tell you that through the process of working with Basecone, and we didn't have that in the past, when we used the first, when we were on the product steerco for the first time using dragonboat with that dashboard, that enables everyone to ask very difficult questions on why are you spending time doing this? And I still remember like that. There were hard conversations, but the interesting part is at the end, people were happy because they were actually asking good questions. They were actually trying to find out what is the best time, what is the best uses of the team's time. So definitely the thing about visibility, alignment, and because of that, you have a more efficient company. So, and helping my team, I'll basically help the company also.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm right there with Mario on how you help the company. So we're just now starting to get to the point of tying our strategic initiatives back to higher level company goals, and actually be able to show them via the dashboards that Mario had mentioned, actually being able to show that, which is going to be extremely valuable, to the point that Mario said. So for us in the IT area, one of the things that we look at is reducing tech debt. And so we're able to actually visualize now what our work efforts are to reduce that tech debt, because that tech debt you then can take back to the bottom line and say that we don't have to do any maintenance on these, or we don't have to fix them and that type of thing, and we're able to work at a faster rate because of the new technology that we may be implementing and that type of thing. So we're actually able to show it even from a bottom line aspect.
Wow.
To help the company grow. Now, I haven't gotten into the bottom line numbers. I'm leaving that right now to the CIO, but at least I'm able to show that these are the efforts that IT has done to reduce our tech debt.
Right.
Yes, I forgot to mention exactly that. One of the things that in the portfolio part, you're really valuable is if you done it right, and all the teams. I usually say to all of the teams, you can do whatever you want in the way you want, but the output in terms of the data needs to be the same. So if you want to do, let's say, feature work, you should use user stories. If you want to do technical dev, you should use the issue type in Jira, like technical dev. And this is important because if you go up one level, you can say, or you can look at how is all of your resources, what is the focus of all your teams, let's say. And I remember after I started doing set up the base for the way that we operate, and then you start putting these dashboards on top of it. You can say, and you can show people that we are spending 20% of the time on the roadmap development, then 30% of the time on fixing bugs, 50% of the time on technical debt. And then it happened before, a really big issue impacts you because there's a lot of performance issue, clients are complaining, etc. And then the interesting part is see the graphics this graphics starts changing because that happened, and you see the bugs going up, the technical debt going up, and that shows, and it's like factual because you can see the graphics. So that is also very, I guess that's very important because it helps to steer that data helps to steer the company also, and it's you helping the team to get to take the best decisions.
Right. Right. Yeah, totally true. I think the allocation is like the key of the portfolio, right? End of the day, you know, at the level where your portfolio manager or your product program manager or your leaderships, what you really don't need to do is micromanaging what your team does, right? You tell you align where your goal needs to be and where your focus will be, and then also make the hard decision of how much I'm going to allocate my team's resources so that your team are set up success, right? If you just say, I want to do all these big things and then didn't really have anything back it, and then your team just do whatever they do, these two things are not connected, obviously it's a chaos. And so I want to use this opportunity also just to ask, I'll go Susan first, in that, you know, you mentioned in the intro that you started as a Scrum Master, and then you kind of gradually, you know, you find more needs, and then you kind of start to do the portfolio manager role. I want to just kind of go in there a little bit. And I think there are some of our audience participants that probably will be like, hey, I am a Scrum Master, I am a product owner, I am, you know, in some capacity working with the team directly. But I'm just curious, what did you see? How do you get into do what you're doing as a portfolio manager? How do you get the leaders and executives, you know, listening to you to say, these are the problems, here's how we fix? Would love to hear a little bit of your journey.
So for me, it was, and Mario's mentioned this quite a bit, it was asking those tough questions. So when I came to RUAN as a Scrum Master, which I still am, they asked me to, at the time, take on more of an admin piece to it, and actually just put together information for the CIO to take to our senior leadership team. And it was all around the portfolio. So it was all about me just gathering information, right? And it was via Gantt charts and stuff, but it was all through Excel. And so it was me asking tough questions because you got the feel for resource capacity. It was asking the tough questions of, are we sure we have the resources working on the right stuff? And the team is strapped for time and they're not able to get everything done. And so it was asking those questions and starting to push those trade-offs and asking, you know, how are you visualizing that? How are you taking that back, you know, to senior leadership to help them? And it was just better understanding what he needed and wanted. And then I put the spin on it that says, I'm going out to these teams and they're telling me they're strapped for time. And that's pretty much how mine got started, and starting to take a look at all of the teams and all of those buckets, because one of our buckets, as an example, is our prod support. No matter what team you're on, prod support is the number one, obviously. Get your break fixes done. And it was really truly starting to dive into understanding what that percentage was for each team and just asking the question, how much time are you spending on prod support? And then taking a look at and asking the CIO and saying, you've got all these strategic initiatives and this is the way they're stacking up. Are you taking into account these other buckets out here? And amazingly enough, the answer was, no, we're just looking at strategic initiatives. I'm like, you can't, you really can't do that, because you're not going to get those strategic initiatives done if you're not taking into account the capacity and other things. So for my evolution, it was just asking questions and start showing what the possibilities were. And it was a gradual evolution from, there's got to be a better way to do it than in Excel, to looking across the board at several different products, because some of our teams use Jira. I know Mario's talked about using Jira. Some of our teams use Jira, some don't. So it was, how do you mesh and work between those two obstacles where the metrics aren't 100% going to match up, right? Because not everybody's using Jira. So it was just starting to put those pieces together and start showing what the possibilities were. That's how I got to be where I'm at right now.
Okay, so on my side, I guess that's very common. When you enter a company, you can probably start as a Scrum Master or a project manager, that the team is small or the company is small. And then the people that were doing the work, that they were doing some work, they start having the time to do it. And they start stacking more teams, and you start having dependencies. And then something happens, and then someone says, okay, I just cannot handle, I don't have the time to do it. Let's find someone to help it. And that's when you start the more on the project management side. You take care of the dependencies. Maybe you just take care of your team and then or two teams. But then, as you correctly said, people start getting this feedback about, I don't have the time to do things. Or sometimes after 3 months, you don't get something delivered. And then some teams, if you have more than one, some teams, a team did something, then that impact the other, and they didn't know about it. So it starts sometime with a bad example or of something that shouldn't happen. And then they ask someone, and then start slowly doing the path. For me, was at that portfolio management and project management, was I started with two teams. And the work starts to show, because you start sending start of sprint reports, end of sprint reports, and people start to see the value, because they say, oh, I never actually read this anything like this, and start doing for 2 teams, 5 teams, 6 teams. It gets to a moment where you yourself cannot do anything more than actually do this, and you ask for help, and then you start evolving the team. And multiple times it happens because people need help understanding what is going on. And I still remember, and when that's the second company I joined, and the person that hires me, whether it's a CEO or CTO or something, I always tell him that I'm not here to make your life easier. I'm here to challenge all your decisions. And that's it. So you start to go into the project management. You start helping them, but at the same time you surface things they had no idea, because things evolve, that the company itself evolves so quick. And it's usually the case for technology. And when they see the numbers and they see what is happening, they go like, oh, okay, so maybe I need more of this, because either I need to justify a decision, or I need more information to take the correct decisions. That's, I guess, that where we will help. Yeah. So surfacing all this. I can give an example. So I created a dashboard based on a lot of things that we were doing, or all of the teams were doing in Jira. And then I show up the number. It says we had 180 bugs. People were like, no way. There is no way that we have 180 bugs. How is that possible? We are so perfect. This is going so well. And if you look at it, like 40% of them had high customer impact. And like, how did this happen? And there is a thing. So work slowly, like one team. You'll probably be a Scrum Master. You go into the project management, you help one team, 2 teams. You start slowing, showing this. And sometimes a good thing is asking people what they want to know. Sometimes it also works that way. What do you want to know? And your own curiosity sometimes triggers that also. And yeah, so I guess that usually that's how you get from Scrum Master into portfolio management.
Right. it's a very, very, very interesting. It's very interesting journey in that I see that also very similar from company to company in that most time when the first Scrum Master ever arrived, that obviously you need to quote unquote fix Scrum because they will never had anyone, they won't do it right. But then very quickly you're like, okay, they're already fixed, right? They know what to do. They don't need me anymore. What do? I better go find another job. So I become a program manager to drive across team. And then it was like, oh, okay, at that time you get to a certain point of maturity to say, hey, I need to become a portfolio manager because we want to make sure we make cross-team dependencies and making the good decisions, the prioritization, visibility. So it's like you basically get yourself out of the job at each level to the point where you truly add a strategic impact. Now, you still probably do some of the Scrum Master role, but you definitely would kind of balance different, like, you know, Susan and Mauro, the both of you kind of mentioned that, right? How you kind of, you do multiple roles depending on the needs, but that the fact that you see that business has a challenge because they, you know, you kind of have the feeling, but you don't really know. So you take on that challenge and try to solve the problem. That's really what leads you to where you are today, right? So we have a question from one of the audience, which is, what is your role in the managing of planned versus unplanned work? And how do you use toolings or dragonboat or whatnot to help identify the resource constraints? You want to go first, Susan?
Okay. Okay, so multiple pieces there. So from a tooling aspect, so I'm going to pull that. I think I can get to the question, right? Okay. So because I knew that there was multiple things. So my role for managing a planned versus unplanned, I typically, for my role, I work with the planned. I bring awareness to any of the unplanned. The product owners should be the ones coming and talking to us about unplanned. But that typically, I'm going to say typically because there's always an exception, is that from our aspect is at the team level. So where I worry about the unplanned is when we start taking a look at prod support issues or the time, you know, escalating and taking away from that strategic work. And that's when I start bringing that up, or the product owner has brought it up, and then we talk about it at our portfolio meeting every month. We talk about the risks. What are we seeing? Are we seeing any delays in that work? So I typically look at the planned stuff at the portfolio, the portfolio level. Dragonboat has been a wonderful help for me regarding the resources, mainly because if you guys are all used to it, or if you know about it, under that forecast and you start working with your estimates and assignments, you can start seeing it's color, right? So you can start seeing when you stack things up, reds and greens. And so my leaders are extremely visual people. So when I can start talking red, green, and I can start moving things for them and they start seeing the resources adjust at the bottom, that's huge for me. And the other nice thing about Dragonboat is it has what you guys call as a draft mode. And so I call it what if. So I can take a look and say, okay, well, what if you put it in draft mode? What if I move this here? Okay, that's going to change the timing, but look at the resources. That frees up the resources that currently were, you know, in red under the normal timing. So it's very visual for me, and I love the fact of it identifying where there's constrained resources, because we go off of skill and team is how we set it up. So huge impact for us.
Great, it's so awesome to hear. Actually, it's the first time I heard it from from a customer like that. Great to hear. Thank you.
Yep.
On my side, the experience and doing the what if analysis in terms of resourcing, yes, that's gold. Because the thing about this, and the when you see the costs or the effort for the epics, let's call it the epics of the feature, right? So the cost of the epics and in terms of resources, you can see the demand coming in, let's say from the product after they did all the prioritization, and you put them into estimation or effort, and you put that into a timeline. You see all reds. You can start seeing all reds, which means that you are over allocated. And that starts to be a problem with the CTO, because he says, I don't have enough resources to actually generate or to produce the roadmap you're requesting from the resource that I have. Because usually the CTO is the one that owns the resources, at least for my last 2 companies. And you start doing exactly that. So what if we move this thing here? What if we stop this thing here? And then if you create the dependency connection, in dragonboat, you see the red arrows also start flashing, and you're like, okay, so if there is too many reds, you know you're not in a good position. And we had this in the past quarter, where we had to take a decision on a front-end work that we were going to do. And based on the fact that everything was red for that team, we had stopped most of the things that they were doing to focus on improving the user experience. In terms of planned versus unplanned work, I work in a company where I spent so much time and effort to try to make everything perfect in terms of allocation of resources. And for the quarterly planning, at the end of the quarter, I guess that the percentage of completion or of done was around like 60 to 70%. So what we have done is, why do we spend 4 times plus more time to get to 30% when we know that we are not going to do it? So what we do is that we try to fill in up to, it depends a little bit, but between 60 to 70% of our capacity for the quarter. And wherever comes, we know that we'll have enough resources to absorb into the day-to-day work, because outage will always happen, performance problems will always happen. Well, people get sick. I mean, the COVID situation was like crazy. How can you do that, right? How can you predict something like this? So what we learn is that we just spend 50% of our time to get the 70%, and that's it. And even sometimes we don't get that done. So so we kind of took that approach to make sure that we can deal with the unplanned work.
That is so cool. I think that's totally true, where, you can never plan everything. The plan pretty much gone out of the day you have the plan. But I think having the plan, like you said, it's really important to see, at least you see the major problems ahead. So you don't just toss your team and then have them to figure it out, because it's very expensive, it's demoralizing. So at least you figure out, let's say, the next month. So you can proceed, and then you can move on and so forth. This is great to hear. And now I'm gonna just ask one more question, and then we can open up to more people. So you have been in your career for a while, and if you look back to your younger self, or to those people who are out there, what would you do differently, if anything? Susan, you want to go first?
I don't know. Based on everything that happened over the course of my career, I don't know if there would be anything different that I would do, because my curiosity and my drive for understanding and the logical aspect of making sure people don't get burnt out and making things efficient and stuff, I think that still would have progressed. I think where I possibly would have made a difference is maybe some of my career choices, my off career choices, I should say. but I had a path of learning, lean and learning, that piece of it and understanding the efficiencies, which led me straight into project management and understanding how to get all the pieces to work together and making sure that you had everything you needed being in scope and that type of thing. Potentially the only thing I would have done differently, or I would notify my younger self earlier, is about the agile practice. And start diving in there a little bit earlier, because I think it would have helped, because the way I look at agile is it's that shorter increments. You can get the business what they need sooner, and then tweak along the way. So you get that business value faster. So I think for me, I would tell my younger self to take a more interest in that earlier.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so this is probably like the fourth company where I do exactly the same. So I started around like 30, 40 people, then we scale up to whatever number or whatever hundreds. And one thing that I learned, and it's always funny, it's like no company is the same. When you try to work on this type of role where you basically try to be the glue, but at the same time you're there to ask tough questions, and you're asking and you're there to show hard truths. Don't just walk your way in and just start showing it. Do a little bit different. So no company is the same, no process is the same. There is the company itself is always very different, with very different people, with very different types of, even like not types of people, but people very different. You need to, when you enter this, because you will always be in a pushy position where people, well, you're there to act upon change, right? You'll do the change, and or you have to do the change, because you have these people saying we need change, and then you have this guy saying I'm not comfortable with changing. So you need to get the buy-in from the guys who don't want to change first. I mean, the others will always ask you for something, but go for the ones that don't believe that this is the thing that they don't believe in you, basically, because you're there to force them to show a lot of the things that maybe they don't want to show. So go for the first who don't, go first for the ones who don't believe in you, and start asking, what is your real problem? What are the things that you're dealing with, that like, what are the worst things that are you dealing with? What are the things that have a negative impact every day in your work? And try to building from there, showing the guys that ask you something, the ones that hire you in the first place, showing them, wait, like there is also these people, or this group of people that are having, maybe they don't have the same issues as you, but they do struggle every single day. And if they struggle every single day, that's because this is actually an important part. And I guess that will be the one of the main things. And don't ever think that talking with different people inside your company, and have regulars one-on-one with very different people outside even of your team, don't see it as a waste of time, because you'll see, or you will notice, and you will learn so many things just by doing that. And that will funnel, or this will fuel a lot of the things, and you get a lot of feedback coming from, let's say that you talk with the CX, you talk with the product, you talk with technology, and then you start seeing how these people or these departments interact, and you start learning it, and start to understanding where are they struggling. And that's how you get people to trust in you, when you're solving the issues for them. That I will say that, because I already joined companies where I said, oh, okay, so I have everything figured out, I've done it in the past, so let's start doing this. And then you complete, maybe you get in maybe your boss will like you, but the people that actually does the work that will enable you to show your boss something, they will not do it. And it's without the buy-in, this work is way, way, way more stressful, and way, way, way worse.
Yeah, I totally hear it. It's funny, you both Susan and Mauro, you have a very similar way of talking about the curiosity, right? The curiosity talking to the people, curiosity about the challenges, the curiosity about the problems will definitely leads to growth. The other part is agile, even though that, you know, obviously Susan, you mentioned about agile, but even for Mauro, you didn't mention that. And you think about it, the way you talk about when you go to a company, when you try to instill a change, you will find the hardest people or the no sayers to try to turn them around, and then you turn more people around. It's really the agile, right? You know, you can almost call it the agile change management or agile process rollout. So by finding the bits that are impactful, being the naysayers, or sometimes you go to the positive, either one you find out, then you kind of can start it the value with the curiosity, with the people, with the problem. Sounds like the theme is very similar between the two of you.
Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes left. Any final words?
Yeah, so if you like, the job is highly rewarding because you see very different things happening because you just started them, and because you light up something in people, or people are started doing this little thing that even so the example will be, and where you get your happiness from is when, again, like you see the people discussing things, people having hard discussions, and that's where you really say, okay, so yeah, I've done something right, because these guys are having like the hard conversations. The funny part is they will actually enjoy, and they will leave the conversations more happy, because they are actually deciding or discussing the things that matter to them. So it's a highly rewarding job. Yeah, I will say that I'm really happy to take it.
I can't say anything better. That is that that I agree with Mario 100% of how rewarding it is. And you know, when you can see that you are having an impact, maybe at the team level versus across the department to across the company. Yeah, very, very rewarding.
Yeah, just to give an example in 1 minute, I joined a company where they had this, I guess this isn't mentioned exactly that, where you had this ops team, and they were all over. So everyone was asking something, either by email, by Slack, going next to the person asking for something, and you had no idea of how this team was operating and how much of the backlog they were taking in. And they had no process at all. So they were always saying, we are way stretched. We have no way to continue in this stage. And you go there and you say, okay, let's try to find a way where everyone funnels the same requests through the same place. Let's figure a way to tag the requests, so you can actually put your team or different people from your team doing those type of tickets, let's say, or this type of work, etc. And while you're doing this, they say, oh, okay, so let's do this, and this, and start having this process or this funneling. And then 1 month later, you get to the team and say, look how the last month looked like. And they go like, they say, this is like a changing moment for the team, because they are looking what type of requests are coming in, how much, or from which team, which type, etc. And they change so much their own ways of working just because they have this data. So that's where you get the fun out of it. And they then will thank you, say, I have no idea how it actually worked before without this. So it's very rewarding.
That is awesome. I think we have a very positive feedback from a lot of members on the call as well. So thank you so much, Mauro, Susan and Mauro, and your career journey is very inspiring. Again, anyone interested to learn more, we have a session that you can sign up as well, and also reach out to us, Susan, Mauro as well. So if we can help the community that wants to grow further into the portfolio and program management space, we're here to help. Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.